So AI, yes, currently as tools, not necessarily just please make me more money and more money comes out the other side. It's not there yet. And I
Not
think that will
quite.
be a short inflection point that if we can ride, we can make loads of money. But it's
And then
probably only
everybody
for a
will
few
use
minutes.
it, and
Well, it's
then
only for
it
a few
becomes
minutes, isn't it, at the point just before sentience or
yeah,
the singularity comes and the whole world turns from slop to slop, and in between the slop there'll be lots of money. Let's collect the money.
yeah.
Cool, good. So back onto real ads then. Real ads that's making money at the moment. What's working at the moment to scale ads spend?
Yeah. There's a lot of talk about Rufus or other, like AI search engine tools. Search is still where it's at. And so, making sure that you rank well in search is still where it's at. And there's still an impact of Amazon advertising on ranking. So, a lot of the core things are still there. My sort of thought process is like, up until like the Amazon shopper is conditioned to search through AI or to search through Rufus, you're not like we're not going to do away with search until the shopper behavior changes. And I haven't seen that change as much as, and I think it's really easy us being online all the time, you almost like feel like everybody operates this way. And the truth is not really as much as, ChatGPT, AI tools are very much talked about and very much seemingly a part of everyone's everyday life. I think the amount of people who are really heavy cutting edge users is way less than you think. And even myself, as much as I kind of really like searching for things AI, I still use Amazon search to find things. Now, have I used Rufus once or twice? Yes. So all of that to say, it still comes down to a lot of fundamental principles. It's just getting more competitive these days. Fundamental principles being identify searches that have high enough volume and you have a high enough conversion rate on that makes sense for you to go after for ranking purposes. That is a big one, and I can't tell you how many or not shoppers, but how many sellers will get that wrong. Of, hey, this is my high search volume keyword. This is what I should go after. This describes my product perfectly. And I'm not saying that's not a good place to start, but what I am saying is that if you are going after those search terms and you're heavily leaning on advertising to be able to push volume there, and then you're not seeing that conversion, you're not going to rank in search. Like I've audited so many accounts and I'm looking at it and I'm like, why are you going after this term? I
Mm.
don't even know the product as well as you do. I can read the data and I can tell you this is not a good idea. And they're like, well, this is our product. I'm like, you have like a 2% conversion rate. That's like the amount of money you're going to have to lose, straight up lose, to be able to even try and push on that. It's just not going to make sense. And so I think that's really where brands need to focus on, and they really need to have a strategic market share capture strategy within their advertising. And I know a lot of people hear like, single keyword exact match campaigns or like exact match being best. And then yeah, I still see so many brands like we onboarded a brand where I'm like, you guys are running everything off autos. Like you're not going to be able to. And so the problem that will happen is like say if you have an account that heavily leans on automatic campaigns, you will drive sales volume. You'll be able to push money into it. You probably will get a cheaper CPC, so everything looks great. ACOS looks good, and so you're dumping more money into ads, and you're like, okay, this is has really effective ROAS. Why do we not scale this, right?
Mm.
And what happens is you will, you'll drive it, and at some point, total ACOS may not make sense. You're like, okay, I need to optimize. And so the very real strategy, I would say, of, pushing for ranking, trying to get some visibility, seeing sales grow, and then say, okay, now I need to optimize for profitability because, I need to get more money in my pockets. I need to worry about cash flow. I know there's a ranking strategy here. And so what'll happen is you'll push on what are more like traditional discovery campaigns. And then when you go to pull back, like your sales drop overnight.
Mm.
And you're like, what the frig? I've been investing in advertising. I've been tolerating a higher total ACOS for like 6 months because I know that's kind of just what you do to push. And then the moment that I pull back, I don't have that visibility. And so what happens is you haven't driven enough specific volume through a specific search and been tracking and validating that yes, you are in fact ranking higher in search. Or when you pull back on a more discovery campaign because the reach is very broad, you're pulling back on like a wide variety. So ideally, we would want to say pull back on the ones that are underperforming and then maybe maintain a little bit more aggressiveness on some of our exact match. So it's not necessarily that like exact match is quote the best. I really love broads and autos and other more broader targeting because they do get cheaper CPCs. They're really good sources of really effective low cost traffic, but because I can't like turn that dial in a very incremental way through those campaign strategies, they just don't make for good ranking plays.
Mm. Yeah, very interesting. Is there a way of understanding the volume that you need to be pushing through that keyword for it to be a ranking campaign, and if it's even possible, like ever going to be profitable?
No, that's a good question. Search query performance is really helpful because it allows you to get, I like looking at search query performance on our conversion rate as relative to the other competitors that are on that search. That can be a really good way to look at it. Another way that you can look at it, which is a little bit quicker to look at, so if I'm just quickly looking at an account, I will look at the conversion rate on that specific target relative to the other keywords that I'm targeting. Like let's say I'm evaluating an account and I said, okay, I have all of these different keywords and maybe I have a 12% conversion rate on this one and I have 11% conversion rate and then I have a 5% conversion rate. It's like, oh, okay, so relative to everything else. So there's relative to everything else I'm doing on that specific product. And then there's relative to how the market is doing. So you can absolutely go through and figure out where am I relative to the market. That analysis takes more time, more
Mm.
reports to analyze. It's a little bit, more hard to dissect. So if I have a good volume, I just like it's really nice to just go, okay, relative to the account, here's kind of directionally what makes sense. And then if you are pushing on something to rank, you always want to make sure that you're tracking ranking. That's like the best one. Now that won't tell you ahead of time, but again, it tells you directionally is this making sense? And then you would also use total A costs to validate if the product is at all it all makes profitable, I guess.
Mm.
So it's like pushing on specific things for ranking. How is it doing relative to the rest of my account? Does it still make sense? Okay, I'm pretty good. Oh man, I'm not really ranking. How am I doing relative conversion rate to other products that are on this keyword? Okay, cool. Yes, I'm increasing in organic ranking. Great. Okay, now I'm looking at total A cost to say I am increasing in organic rank. Does the sales that I'm driving, does the sales increases that I'm driving offset the cost that I'm investing in the advertising? If all those things are go, then like keep going.
And is there a good way to back off that when you need to back off without tanking your organic ranking?
Yeah, that's a tough one. That one is quite dependent on the product and the keyword and how important it is. I will say this. If you have a campaign that's been running for a very long time, you can tell there's some like campaign history in that that's sort of getting you really lower cost per clicks and like everything's doing good. Be very careful. Like I would never just like turn it off and on. I don't like an off or on switch quick. I like to have a slow dial. Typically speaking, if you're going to back off something, like we say, okay, we need to lower total A costs on this particular product. We know it's a, we know we've been pushing on it for ranking purposes. Is there a way we can dial back? I'm a huge fan, and this is what we do in our agency, is like we call it like a bottom-up approach, meaning what's at the bottom, the biggest one is where am I getting clicks with no sales? So how do I work from least amount of sales, lowest performance, all the way up to where I have a higher amount of sales and a higher performance. Because if we weed out spend from things that just aren't making impact, well, that lowers spend. And then if we can maintain all the things we know are performing really well, then that can also lower total A cost. Now, how much of that quote testing you've been doing or how much of that you can weed out will kind of change like how much impact you're going to get on total A cost. So you will have to like work your way, I don't know if I call it up the funnel, but like kind of up the chain of important things. And then that's another reason why it's really, really helpful to have your ranking and market share play campaigns segmented. You hear about, oh, adjust based on, the campaign strategy. And that kind of seems a little bit vague. You're like, okay, so I'm supposed to have a campaign strategy. And like, it's just like, is this campaign specifically set up for you to increase your organic ranking? Or is this campaign specifically set up to tackle branded? So it's like, okay, if it's branded terms, then I probably want to have a lower ACOS target, higher ROAS target, because I don't really want to lose money on branded. Okay, these are discovery campaigns. I'm not really trying to aggressively scale them. I'm trying to get lower cost traffic. Okay, lower ACOS target. Hey, this is a single keyword exact match ranking campaign. I'm trying to push on it to drive organic ranking, so I probably have a higher ACOS target. It's really just thinking through things logically. Sometimes we like throw out these words like data driven or campaign strategy and people like this is just like think about what your goal is or what you're trying to accomplish with that campaign and then just make sure that's factored into your optimizations.
Amazing. Thank you, Elizabeth. We are now going to move on to the next part of the podcast. This part is your controversial take. So, what's your most debatable or controversial opinion related to Amazon or the e-commerce industry in any way?
I like to think that people who have been in the industry a while will probably agree with me. This, because kind of the flip side of kind of everything that I've been saying is that I can't tell you how many times I have audited accounts or looked at account strategy where the reason why they're unprofitable is because they've been scaling low ACOS campaigns. And you might be like, what? I'm getting a really good return on these ads. Why would I not increase it? And the thing that you have to understand is your total A cost, which is like an advertising view of your profitability. In like a very like back of the napkin math kind of, if I have, let's say, before all advertising, I have a 35% profit margin. And then let's say I'm running a 10% Greene. I'm gonna have to do head math. But like let's say I have a 10% total A cost. So what did I say? It was like 35 minus 10 is gonna give me 25. So back of the napkin math, again, we have returns, we have all of these things to factor in. Roughly ballpark speaking, I have 25% margins after I pay for advertising. Well, your total A cost is actually a multiplication of two different numbers. One is your A cost. So I'm not saying A cost doesn't matter, but the other one is actually what we call your ad sale percentage. So what percentage of your total sales is coming from advertising versus your organic? Actually, if you take those two numbers, so you take your ad sales divided by total sales, so roughly ballpark averages, by the way, for private label sellers, you're probably looking at about 50-50, roughly speaking. If you're scaling, it's probably a little bit above that. If you have a really, really strong brand, like I'm talking really strong brand, you can get away with like 25 to 30%, but that's only because you have the branded traffic to make up for that. So we already kind of have an idea of what's normal here. And then if I take ACOS multiplied by my ad sale percentage, so if 100% of my sales are coming from advertising, I don't have any organic, my ACOS is going to equal my total ACOS. And that's kind of why scaling, only because it has really profitable ads, or like, hey, this has fantastic ROAS. I get that question from brands a lot, and so I have a lot of those questions with like our brands. They're like, hey, this is fantastic ROAS. Why are we not putting more budget here? Like, we have like a 20% ACOS here. Sometimes it's like 11%, 15%. Why would we not put more budget here?
Mm.
And my answer is always because I actually care about your brand and your profitability. As much as it would be fantastic for me to show you a really fantastic ROAS or really low ACOS on your account, all I'm going to be doing is simply growing your ad sales because going back to how we started, like working on making sure that you have specific campaigns that are designated for market share growth. It's not because we're like so obsessed with market share and we just want to like, okay, everybody should be obsessed with market share and we all have to like be tolerant of really high A costs on these campaigns because, market share. No, the reason actually why is because if you don't focus on that, all you're going to do is grow ad sales and you're not going to grow total sales and your profitability is actually going to be worse off than
Mm.
if you were okay with sort of pushing on those. And again, going back to discovery campaigns, broad match, auto campaigns, sometimes category targeting campaigns. I'm trying to think what else is working. But a lot of those campaigns, oftentimes you do get lower CPCs. And it's obnoxious because I can have the exact same search term showing up in an exact match and an auto campaign, and the auto campaign will have a cheaper CPC. So you're like, why would I not drive that traffic at a cheaper CPC? It makes sense. Well, you again, you can't drive enough specific volume to make measurable difference in market share in an auto campaign. You can't because the algorithm's determining when and where it's going to show, and you can't be like, hey, Amazon algorithm, please put more money exactly here. Like don't spend anywhere else, just spend it here. You don't have that control. And so if you're not aware of that dynamic, like you can kind of scale off of autos and broads up until the point where if you have a really competitive category, you won't be able to do that. But I have seen brands who come to us and they've reached the seven-figure mark, or maybe even a couple, maybe they'll double that or a little beyond, right? And they're like, okay, so like we've reached this point, our ACOS is super profitable, but we're like stuck on this seesaw of, we try and push to grow sales and then we pull back for profitability and our sales drop and we haven't quite figured out how to get out of that dynamic. And I can tell you every single time I look at those accounts, I'm like, yep, you have an imbalance in what you're doing for market share. All of it is strictly going off of ACOS and ROAS. No one has a good incremental strategy here that is being intentional with getting you out of this rabbit hole. So if you don't have that strategy in place, you will always be stuck on that seesaw.
Love it. Good answer. Okay. All right. So, Elizabeth, before you leave, what's the best way of anyone contacting you, finding out about you, learning more if they've liked what they've heard today?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're just interested in like hearing what I have to say on ads, we put out the most content in LinkedIn and then also YouTube. I've been doing a lot more like technical videos about not necessarily advertising, but like, hey, here's a new feature in this account. Here's exactly how to use it, or here's how to use this report that I think sellers find useful. Unless you wanted to reach out to us, you're like, okay, yes, I'm stuck on the seesaw. I need to get off of it. I need somebody to take a look at my advertising. I need some strategic advice on how to get out of this seesaw. I highly recommend going to our website, which is junglr.com, junglr.com. You can reach out, book a call with me. I'm still taking those calls, and then we'll see what we can do about your ads.
Love it. Just checking out YouTube now. Good. It's nice to see. Oh, you're going live tomorrow.
Yes, yeah, actually, yeah, that's a good call out. Just so I have the hat. But we do a weekly live Q&A. So, yeah, if you have any like strategic questions, you're like, hey, I'm stuck, you can show up to our weekly live every single Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Wonderful. So, Elizabeth, thank you again. Thanks for taking the time, and it's a pleasure to have you back. We will see you again. I don't know, in a year again. No, whenever you're doing the rounds again. It'd be lovely to see you again.
No, I appreciate it.
Thanks. And if you've been watching this, listening to this on any platform, please do rate us. Ratings help us go further. And if you're watching a clip, you won't see this bit. So see you next week if you watch the full form. And thank you for watching.